Welcome into the FTM betting show, guys. The season is dwindling down, and I guess our crew on this show is dwindling down. Sam, it's just you and I this week, but we're going to have some fun. Abby Labar, Sam Choudhury with you guys to bring you all the best bets and some of the props we're taking a look at ahead of this weekend. We've got 3 Saturday games. I love this time of year. Only a few weeks left in the season, but this is when things get super exciting. Another quarterback added to that lengthy list of starting QBs that are out. So that's made for a huge storyline going into the last few weeks of the season. Sam, what are some of the things that have stood out to you as we enter into week 15?
Well, you mentioned it. I mean, another quarterback to the pool. For all you fantasy guys, this is the first week of the fantasy playoffs, and I mean, these quarterbacks just completely off the radar going
Yeah.
into it. It's also I've been huge on best ball too, so it's like you're sort of looking at your playoff teams and your rosters, and you're scrolling through this one has Justin Herbert, this one's dead, this one's got a Kirk Cousins team. You're just sort of crossing off these teams with dead quarterbacks. With like you said, I mean Thursday night, even Aiden O'Connell, he's had a handful of starts by now, but going into the season, we had no idea this guy was going to see the field. So, I mean, it's wild right now.
It's insane. We'll take a look at that slate that we've got going into the weekend. Tonight it starts with the Chargers and the Raiders in Vegas. That line currently at 3.5. I'd love to get your just initial thoughts on anything that you like from that game, and then anything else that stands out to you here. I know we're going to dive into some of these, but any games in particular where you like the spread or the money line?
Yeah, I mean this game is gonna be super interesting. Me and David Jones will be back later on tonight for the showdown show, but I've been searching for props, but I mean they're keeping most of it all hidden. Even Devonte Adams, I couldn't get anything besides his receiving yards, which was even hidden on some books. But the Josh Jacobs news, we're still getting that he's probably doubtful, but not officially out yet. So we can't even look at Zamir White props yet. So yeah, it's weird. It's super limited right now. I'm sure within the hour, so we're gonna get a lot more of those to drop in. But yeah, I mean, even with the Aiden O'Connell thing, I mean, there was word that Jimmy Garoppolo might start tonight.
Yeah.
And they announced Aiden O'Connell as the starter, but they're not even releasing his. I just want to take the unders on him, so just in case there is a chance that Jimmy Garoppolo comes in. But yeah, they won't even release the lines yet.
Yeah, that's crazy. I like your idea with that though on taking the under. Speaking of Indianapolis Steelers, I know this is a game that you've got your eyes on. That line opened at 2.5. It was at 3 at one point. Now it's 1.5. So this has been shifting quite a bit. We're talking 7 and 6 teams. There's 6 teams with that record right now in the AFC. So everyone's kind of fighting right now for that wild card spot. This, I feel like, is going to be a desperate game for both the Colts and the Steelers, Sam. I know the Steelers are dealing with some frustrations. 2 losses to sub 500 teams, and then the Colts lost to the Bengals last week after kind of riding that win streak there. So what's been kind of the key to what you've seen with why this line has shifted a little bit, and which way are you swaying with this one?
Yeah, I remember 2 weeks ago coming on with the Arizona Pittsburgh game, and I said any team getting 5 points against this Pittsburgh team, I want to hammer that all the time. I think it actually ended up closing at 6.5, and I said, yeah, I mean, I don't hate sprinkling on the money line against Arizona, just because I think the Steelers get too much credit just based on their historic track record, especially with Mike Tomlin. I'm pretty surprised that this line opened at 2.5, and I thought if anything, money would be coming in on Indy's side, but it looks like people are still backing up the Steelers, which again I think it's just a factor of Mike Tomlin.
It's the Mike Tomlin effect, no
Yeah,
doubt. That's
exactly.
exactly
That's
what it
exactly
is.
what it is. But
Yeah.
when you look at this team, I mean, obviously we saw Mitch Trubisky's first start last week, and losing to Bailey Zappi and company. I mean, I really just don't get it. I feel like I'm missing something, and this might be a trap, but it almost feels way too easy to back the Colts. Both these teams are the top 2 teams in the wild card race. Maybe the first 2 into the playoffs, but you just look at both these teams on paper. I mean, Pittsburgh by far is the worst point differential by any team that's above 500. They're minus 40 on the season.
Jeez.
I mean, the offense, looked bad as it was with Kenny Pickett under center. I don't think there's a huge drop off between Mitch and Kenny Pickett, but
Yeah.
regardless, I mean, going into this season, it was as if Pickett was the starter. It was going to be the starter to close out the season. And we got a glimpse of Mitch the past 2 weeks, and it hasn't looked great on the season. I mean, Pittsburgh has run 9.3% of their plays inside the red zone. That's 31st in the league. They've punted on 50.9% of their drive. That's also 31st in the league. I just don't know how you can back this team with how terrible the offense has looked. Yeah, I mean, Indianapolis lost to the Bengals, but I mean, we've seen Jake Browning, obviously he went to Jacksonville, upset them. I don't think Cincy's a terrible team, but yeah, I mean, I've been pretty encouraged with the way the Colts have looked all season with Gardner Minshew. So it almost seems too easy to back them here at home.
Yeah, so let's dive into some of the props there because I know the run game was a struggle, really one of the bigger weaknesses for this Colts team. So I think 3 ball carriers, 46 yards on the ground last week, no JT, so that's been obviously a factor. So Zach Moss, our like prop tool is showing there's an edge there on playing that under. The line's at 73.5. We're projecting him to run for 60 yards. Do you like that line? Are you gonna play that at all?
I think the under would probably be the move. I think this is a round where his line has been opening up the past 2 weeks. I mean, yeah, it's really hard to get behind Moss because I mean the volume has been great. He's been playing over 80% of the snaps back to back weeks, over 75% of the rush attempts. So it seems pretty fair. So I think the under would probably be the right move. So, but I guess I don't really have a strong case for it. If I do think Indianapolis is going to win the game, I think that is pretty favorable for Moss. And there's just not any other running back taking away any touches. That's why it's kind of
Yeah.
a volatile play because, I mean, like I said, if Indy does get up ahead, I could see them just hammering Moss the rest of the game. So it's
All
a good
right. Another one that I saw, this one I like because there's plus money available. Michael Pittman under receptions, 23% edge, which is pretty good when you look at our prop shop. That line's 6.5. Is he going under?
under on 6.5.
I think
I
it's
think I'd be
plus
smart.
110.
I think I'd be smashing the over on
All
Pittman
right.
6.5. I mean, he's been on a streak. I think it's 4 or 5 games straight with 8 grabs. I mean, he's been a target monster the past couple weeks. And yeah, I mean, I think I would probably project him closer to 8 again. So I think I'm gonna have to go against the model on that one.
All right. He's going against the model. All right. Well, look, the Colts, their schedule's pretty good for the rest of the season. Their last 4 opponents aren't going to have a record better than 7-6. So I like where you're going with Indy on this one. A part of me is like, you and I, like, is it a trap here? Like the 1.5? I don't know. Like what, I know a lot of people, like you said, are backing Mike Tomlin and the Steelers, but I mean, this seems pretty easy for the Colts. I guess we'll find out. All right. Next, we got Denver at Detroit. The Lions are in the driver's seat right now in the NFC North. If they win, they can clinch a playoff spot. A couple different scenarios have to happen throughout the weekend, though, for that to go through. But the Broncos have been riding hot as well. So this is a big one. I think a lot of people are going to have eyes on this game. The line at 5, I think. Are you laying
Yeah.
the points with Detroit? Or are you going with Denver?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Denver here. I mean, Detroit's a team that I've been super encouraged about. I've talked about glowingly on this show too, but I feel like there's always this. It's hard to get over this mindset that you have of teams early in the season. I mean, you look at Denver, the way they started off, and we thought this team was done for, especially getting blown out by against Miami by 70 points, but I feel like if Denver's losses was more sporadic and sprinkled out throughout the season, they didn't have that blunder to start the year. We'd be viewing this team a lot more differently. I
Yeah.
mean, just before their last loss, they had the longest win streak in the NFL at one point. They were against teams like the Broncos, Chiefs, high end
Yeah.
contenders. Detroit has been trending in the opposite direction. A brutal loss to Chicago 1 week after Green Bay, and yeah, I mean Green Bay. They had some other notable wins against KC, but we saw again they lost to the Giants this past week. So I don't really know why this line is as high as 5. The 5 line is still available on DraftKings, but yeah, I feel like these are two teams trending in completely opposite directions. And I mean, I think Denver has a chance to sneak into the postseason. They're right there in it with the AFC collapsing the last couple weeks, and we've just seen Jared Goff be super careless with the ball. back-to-back games with brutal turnovers. Over the past 4 games, Detroit has a 20.5% turnover rate per possession, which is
Yep.
second worst in the league. And on the opposite end, Denver's defense has really stepped up during their last 8 games. They've had a turnover on a league high 20.2% of opponent possession. So I think it could be another hard day for Jared Goff and company. And honestly, the past month or so, I mean, I'd say Russell Wilson is probably playing like the better quarterback. So I really like taking the points with Denver. I think they're live dogs in Detroit. Even though Jared Goff has been a lot better at home, I still like taking the points here with Denver.
Okay, I like it. So with that in mind, with the turnovers, because that's a big thing, right? And then Denver's defense, they haven't given up more than 22 points in the last 8 games. Obviously, Detroit's strength is going to be their offense. I want to get your opinion on the game total for this one. I think I saw 47.5. Are you touching this?
I think I would take the under on that one.
Okay.
Again, I think both of these offenses ideally would like to play conservative. I mean, Detroit has been one of the lower pass rate over expectation teams on the season, and especially with Jared Goff's play the last 2 seasons. I think they prefer to keep the ball in the hands of their 2 running backs, and that's another reason why I like the points. Even if Detroit does win, I think at worst case scenario, it's going to be within a field goal. And the other reason why Russell Wilson's numbers have been so great is because he's converting touchdowns at a super high rate. But even him, I mean, the passing production hasn't really been there, which a lot of that does have to do with game script. But Sean Payton is playing it right, pass
Yeah.
to get ahead. And when you're ahead, give it to Javonte Williams. So I think I do like the under on this game.
All right, another big one we've got. Chris Meany's not here to talk about his Eagles, but a big win over the Eagles, the Cowboys last week. Both the Cowboys and the Bills coming off huge wins, right? Bills beat KC. So this is a big one to watch. I know you want to look at some specifics in regard to this one, but the line on this one, 2, 1.5, some places could essentially be a pick 'em, you think, at a certain point as the week dwindles down. But what are you particularly looking at in this specific matchup? Because there's a lot of different plays that I think you could go in this one when it comes to props, game total, the spread, etc.
Yeah, the Bills Cowboys game.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I was pretty surprised with Buffalo getting the 2.5 even at home, which I have been backing Buffalo the past couple weeks because they're fighting to keep their playoff hopes alive. So
Yeah.
initially, I didn't want to touch the spread, so my first inclination was right away to go to the props, and they are still waiting on releasing the props. But end of the day, I'm expecting a shootout from both these teams. Buffalo is barely above 500. They just got over that mark, beating Kansas City last week. But this offense has been one of the best in the league. Top 5 in DVOA. Both these offenses are top 5 in scoring. So my first thought was to look at the game total, and at the time it was 50 and a half,
Yeah,
51.
that's what I was seeing
Yeah, and I think I mentioned last week on the Philly San was it the who was it? Philly San Francisco?
last week.
Or no, that was 2 weeks
No,
ago.
that was yeah, because it was
Or
Philly Cowboys last
oh
week.
yeah, Philly Dallas. That's who it was.
Yeah,
And I mentioned that anytime I see a total above 50, like my first thought is to right away hammer the under. But
yeah.
looking at this one, I saw the 50. I'm like, I don't know if I want to go the under against these two offenses. So I
Okay.
looked at the point total, and I saw Dallas was at 24.5, Buffalo's at 26.5. I thought those were fair lines, but I mean, again, they're super high. I don't want to take the over or the under on both those totals. And then I saw on Bet365, you could get it at -125 for both these offenses to score 20 points. So I mean, I thought that was a layup to get
I like that.
125 for both of them. Yeah, for
Yeah.
both of them to get 20 points. And then I looked at the hit rate for both of them. On the season, Dallas has scored 20 or more points in 11 out of 13 games. So that's 84.62%. Bills almost the same, 10 out of 13 games. Dallas has scored 20 plus in 8 games in a row. Buffalo 4 games in a row, and all 3 since they moved to Joe Brady as their offensive coordinator. So I feel really great about both these offenses putting on a show this weekend. And I think at the end of the day, I think the Dallas does have a stronger defense, but I still think but by our numbers, Buffalo is a slightly stronger offense. So I think it's gonna be a shootout. So yeah,
Yeah,
give me both teams scoring 20.
we talked last week about just the Cowboys team total. I know they're not at home this week, but I think in 6 home games they had hammered the over on their team total. So I like where you're going with this. Now, weather could be a factor, but obviously Vegas normally accounts for that. I know it's supposed to be cold and windy up in Buffalo. What are you thinking when it comes to that regard? I feel like it probably is already set to prepare for that, but I mean,
Yeah,
it could
yeah,
get
I would
colder as
imagine.
the week goes on.
Yeah, and there was similar concerns with the Buffalo and Philly game with
Yeah,
the weather
last week.
and it was pouring. Yeah, and you saw the total actually didn't change that much, and it was
Okay.
pretty accurate. I mean, weather was definitely a concern, but I mean, when you have offenses like Buffalo and Dallas, I mean, 20 points is a pretty low bar to clear as well. So.
It is. Yeah. I like it. I like the play there. All right. Our models are showing there's an edge to the under with Dak and Josh Allen's passing yardage. Are you going to look at either of those props? Because I think it's a pretty hefty edge. I think it's like 15, 20%, might be more than 25%, I think, for Dak Prescott. The line for him is 281 in the hook, and then Josh Allen's 265 in the hook. Would you be playing the unders on these, or are you still sticking with the over and the points being scored and them having a good outing?
I think I feel better about Dax under. I mean,
Mhm.
280 as an initial line is a pretty steep bar to
Yeah,
clear. But yeah, I mean, I think at 260, I don't think I'd play the under or over for Josh Allen. I mean, a lot of his production
not
comes on the
touching.
ground, so
Yeah,
yeah.
no.
And like I said, I am expecting a lot of offense in this game. I personally won't be taking their passing unders just because I don't want to see it. But I think the play would be yeah. When a line starts off
Contradicts your point, your choices
exactly
when it comes to the totals.
yeah. I'm not trying to middle it, so.
Fair, fair. All right, I've got a money line dog pick for this week. I'm curious if you've got one as well. Let's throw the matchups up again one more time so we can just take a look at what we got. Um, Tampa Bay at Green Bay. I think I'm going to take the Bucs as the money line dog in this one. I know the Packers run game, they've been dealing with injuries. Chris Godwin was the only offensive player on the injury report so far this week for Tampa Bay. I know Mike Evans could be a big challenge for this Packers secondary. I know it's on the road. I know it's in Green Bay, but I don't know. I think Tampa Bay, they've had a couple good wins, or not really good, but just like important wins for them. And anytime you're on a win streak, it's things are good. I know we were talking about Green Bay and Jordan Love, and we were high on them a couple weeks ago, and they've been good as well towards the end of the season. But I think I'm going to go Tampa Bay for my money line dog.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Any chance to fade Jordan Love, sign me up. I mean, he was balling out the past couple
Yeah,
weeks. I mean, we saw it on Monday night. Like his consistency is just all out of whack, and I mean, he could look dominant. I mean, I mentioned earlier the Kansas City game. I mean, he looks great, like an actual franchise quarterback in some games, and then you just see all the red flags come out at once, and yeah, I mean the offense definitely struggled without Christian Watson too. I mean, I don't feel great about the offense. Aaron Jones possibly coming back, that does help, but yeah, I mean the 3.5. I should probably add that one. Tampa Bay getting 3.5. That
yeah,
looks great there, but yeah, I really like them as an underdog pick as well.
yeah. I think I saw 3 points too somewhere as well. So 3.5, 3 points, always a good move. Do you have one that you like? Any of these that you would
Um,
pick as a money line dog?
I think honestly, I think the Denver Detroit is a pretty good one for pretty much everything I stated.
Really rolling with the Broncos.
Yeah, yeah. I would ideally like Detroit to win because like I want to see them in the playoffs, and I do love watching this Detroit offense play. But just from what I've seen the past couple weeks, this line still feels way too big.
Yeah. All right. And for the sake of Mike Randall, because we always got to talk about his Saints, where would you like the Saints this week?
No, I mean I definitely love the points with Tommy DeVito. I mean 6 points against Derek Carr. I mean that's crazy to me. I mean it's the same thing as the Steelers. No team should be getting 6 points against Derek Carr.
Talk about a story. Tommy DeVito and his family have been like the entertainment of this last couple of weeks in the NFL. So I'm sure we'll see plenty more of that. But no, great stuff, Sam. This was all really good insight. I always like the angles that you go. It provides us some different, plays that we can look at headed into the weekend besides just taking points and picking teams on the money line. So we appreciate you as always. We hopefully will have Randall, Chris Meany, one of those guys, all of us. Maybe we should do all of us on the show one day. I think that would be
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, we haven't had
You've
all.
been,
That's kind of weird. We haven't had all four of us in
we
one show.
haven't. No, we definitely need to do that. So we will we'll make sure that we can kind of get them on all together. That would be a fun one for sure as the season winds down. But thank you guys as always for tuning in to the NFL Betting Show here on FTN Network. You guys have fun and we'll see you next week.